Alright, so there were a couple comments asking how I made this thing, I guess, which is honestly just really random. I don't really know, I'm just messing around, I guess. I'm just gonna walk you through the nodes that I use, which you can see the node tree, I guess, is relatively complicated, but um could be explained easier if I used underlays and other stuff like that. And it all started with one node, which is the mask paint, which is just this curve right here. Kind of looks like a sine wave. I don't really know. So it branches off into two things. So we have a transform, which kind of just goes up and down, and it's also set to edges on wrap. So it does like, this shit, right? And we also have a mirrored version, which is doing essentially the same thing. Here, let me go this one. Essentially the same thing, but now it's backwards, right? Um, and we have both of them go into a like double duplicate node because for some reason I'm just like messing around and shit and I ended up coming up with this. So if you duplicate it, you have this side, right? And just go to like a part where it shows its problems. So you duplicate it on one side, it gets all like, it gets kind of yucky because it like doesn't do stuff properly. But then if you duplicate it down, it perfectly covers it. So you merge them together, you just get one spiral. And of course there is a mirrored version of that. And what we have here is just like, I don't know, some things happening. I have no idea what these are for. I completely forgot. We have these custom tools here which are just used for spacing of the lines. I didn't really use them at all, but if I ever had to, I could. Anyways, you merge them together and you get this spiral, and essentially what happens is there's this effect. If I search up, there's like this one, a Geometry Dash Creator, right? And let me go here. So this is like a really old Geometry Dash effect that I learned a long time ago, where essentially, if you go here, you
I
can see how
love
he
you
makes
from
it,
that.
where you have a spiral, but instead of the spiral being like an actual thing, it's actually just lines going up and down, and essentially, if you have two lines here, and then you have them offset each other, you have them like move opposite. If you put them together, you give the illusion of like a thing turning, right? So I honestly wish I could have done it as good as that, but that's basically the gist of what I did here, except I'm bad. I kind of fucked up on like the whole thing here, so, and I didn't really sell it that well, but stuff happens. I guess something I could do is try and crank down the spacing and try and make stuff look more realistic, but that's fine. But anyways, you have it. I worked in 1080 by 1080, and then I merged it over a blank background to make it 1920 by 1080. I added just like a regular rectangle, and then I added lines because without it, there's like holes and shit. I don't really like that. So after merging that on top, we have something going on here. I honestly completely forgot. But, oh, okay. So we have a rectangle, which then gets rendered and then goes into a background that is linear. Or linear, like, it's a gradient, but it's linear. And the downside of that is that it only goes in a straight line like this. There's no curve, which means it doesn't really sell the impression of it being a cylinder. So then you plug it into a color curves and you give it a curve, like this, and how it interprets shit, which, actually, let me go back into Paint, which essentially, so let's say this is the original thing, the color curves, node, basically like, gain, shit like that. In general, it takes this linear input and kind of smooths it out to where now it looks more like that. I mean, obviously, Paint isn't really a good way to explain things, like with curves, but something like that. It gives it the impression of a more curvature. And then we have this mask, or no, we don't have a mask actually. We just have this black background because for some reason the color curves alone actually like messes with the opacity. So I just merged it over the same thing that it came out before. Then plug it into a color corrector and crank down the gain so that it's like slightly less bright, I guess. Do this in here, put it under the original lines that came out, blah blah blah. Um, and so now we have this random ass cylinder, and if I play it back, which if it loads, then I don't know. I guess I'll show it off when it loads, but you can see right now that it just gives the impression of spinning when in reality it's just two it's legitimately just like two spiral lines moving up and down against each other. I don't know, it just looks nice. That's basically it. Anyways, I scaled it up a lot, mirrored it, and then lens blurred it a lot. then put it in the background. So now we have something like this. I added this in pretty late in, but it's okay. And that was just to add in a just a background that would kind of, I don't know, do random shit. And this was originally to have it be over a black background, so it would be something like that, but I don't have it like that anymore, so this is kind of irrelevant actually. But anyways, this is where I added in some text, and I only used one text node for this, so I had two keyframes on the text, one right here in the, you know, in the beginning where it's on the top, and then another keyframe right at the bottom where, you know, it's down there. And in order to get the reverse of that, what I instead did is I plugged it into a time stretcher, and I set which the time stretcher takes like the source time of like whatever's before it. So I took frame 285, which is the end of the composition, I guess, and put it at the beginning, you know, and then I put this one on 0. You know, so it reverses, and then now when you have them playing, they are moving in the opposite direction, so I can still edit this and change both of them. Camera shake, honestly really slight, didn't really change anything. We have this ellipse going into a very blur, which, you know, it's like, I don't know, it just does it. You know, it blurs whatever is on the outside like this. Also, another thing, whenever you're using any sort of black and white image to either displace, blur, or send some information, like plug it into here to work with it, make sure to go in the image, change it from default to custom, and change the depth to float 32. What that essentially does is it gives more information out in the gradient. When you have more fine lines, it technically it just gives more info. I don't know, because there's more depth in the pixels. I mean, obviously it's not visual, you can't see it like in the black and white, but in terms of info you're giving to very blur and like displaces and stuff, in very rare situations it actually is useful, but usually it doesn't really matter. I have this universe plugin thingy for chromatic aberration, which I kind of just like cranked it up because, you know, fuck it, why not? Soft glow kind of just fucks with it, I guess. Added a bunch of grain for no reason. Added some flicker, duotoned it with, I think, yeah, this is a Sapphire plugin, which you don't need the Sapphire plugin. There actually is a way to do it in DaVinci naturally. Let me just try that right now. Duotone DaVinci Resolve. I think it was by like JRTV or some shit. He plugged it into a fast noise. Let me just find that. What did he do? He bitmapped it and then plugged it into a fast noise, which I guess works. I mean, that's doable. Let's try that right now, actually. So instead of this, we're just gonna have a fast noise right here, and we're gonna have to plug this into a bitmap. I'm assuming he just has the bitmap mapped to Luma, and then plug it into the fast noise. Okay, yeah, that's basically it, unless he has something different. Let's look in the video. Let's just see what he did. What did he do with the thing? He did Luma, but apparently it just like messes with whatever I have going on. Oh. That is just odd. Oh, wait, I'm dumb. It's the fast noise because we have one of the colors being completely opposite. Well, anyways, you plug it into a bitmap and then you put it into the fast noise, and then you can change the colors in here because you have two color, or you can have a gradient, which kind of just does whatever. But if you set it to two color, you essentially get the duotone effect. And if you just set the if you just keep brightness stock like this, or you can change the brightness or whatever, and then detail you don't really mess with at all. You just leave that alone. Then in the like two-tone colors, you can kind of mess with it. I don't really know how to do any of it, so whatever. But you can essentially get whatever you want there. But I just use the Sapphire plugin because why not? And maybe it'll crash resolve now, who knows? But anyways, we have this, right? Plugged it into a brightness contrast and really just fucked it. I don't really know. Originally had it in a time stretcher, but yeah, that's basically it.